Hello students, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm your Rti Singh with the daily analysis of the Hindu from 14th of October 2024. Let's begin today's analysis. This is the QR code. Basically, this is a Telegram account where you can find this particular PDF on which all the board work has been done. Along with it, you can find all the necessary material which is required for your preparation. Now, let us move ahead and see what all topics you're going to cover from today's news analysis. First of all is PM Gati Shakti, that is important from the perspective of General Studies Paper 2 and GS3. RTI, this is basically an opinion and form of editorial, and it is important from the perspective of civil services with respect to GS Paper 2, and editorial that deals with China, India, and Quad, important from the international relations perspective. Then we have the news in shorts and then MCQs, both for your preliminary examination. Let's begin today's analysis. So this is the article that was there in your newspaper that deals with, that means PM Gati Shakti, that is driving faster development. Now, from the perspective of civil services, you need to know what PM Gati Shakti basically is. This can be asked in your preliminary examination with respect to its pillars being asked, or for mains examination that they can ask you, what is the scheme, what does it deal about, and what is the performance of the scheme. So let's see. PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, PMGS NMP. It has basically completed 3 years. That is why it comes into the news. That is the context. Now, what is this scheme basically? Now see, it is a multimodal connectivity plan. Now please understand, let us take an example. Supposing you are going from point A to point B. You are connected by, let us say, a road transport, right? Now, supposingly, this is something that was earlier. Now, supposingly, there is a rail connectivity also. Supposingly, rapid metro transport is also there. Supposingly, the aircraft is also there. Supposingly, a stream was there through which waterways is also connected. You'll be realizing there is going to be decongestion. That means lesser traffic on, let us say, one mode. Options available, competition with there, prices will be less. And along with the dedicated lines can be there for various, let us say, transport for larger trucks, for that matter, passenger traffic transport. So what happens is linking the various places through various means of transport. Along with it, do you realize that as we are connecting these lines, all these regions itself can be a source of regional development through industries, through manufacturing plants coming up. So this is, though it is focusing on the multimodal connectivity, it is not merely confined to connectivity. It also helps in the regional development of the regions which are being connected. So let us see. It is a multimodal connectivity plan with the aim of coordinated planning, execution of infrastructural projects to bring logistical costs down. Obviously, if you have better road infrastructure, supposingly you have a lot of potholes, holes in within the roads only, you will be realizing that there's going to be the fall in the efficiency of the transporters, or whatever time it takes, it is going to consume more fuel. It can also lead to, let us say, condition or decaying of the food stuff that is being transported. According to surveys, like when a banana transport was being done, let us say in the coastal regions, approximately 200 to 500 kilometer transport is done. Close to 20 to 30% losses used to occur because of the bad condition of the roads. Now, obviously, after the development of these road in a, let us say, in a proper expressway format, we are saying, or let us say better roads are being there, we see a rapid fall in the decaying of the foods also. So that is why we see this is an important plan. Now, this is a 100 lakh crore plan, a humongous task. Now, this is again important. 6 pillars of Gati Shakti. This becomes important from the perspective that in the examination, they can be asked as PYQs, in the MCQs in the form of, let us say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any of them can be put and say which among them are the pillars of Gati Shakti. First, comprehensive. This incorporates all the existing infrastructure scheme under its gamut. So it is like, that is why a master plan is what PM Gati Shakti aims at. It is analytical because it uses geospatial information and technology. Now remember that a lot of emphasis has been focused on launches of satellite. We know that satellite information or data basically helps us better understand a region and how the development can take place. Similarly, please understand, over here data analytics and data mining and researching the data and finding the best output or what is required becomes very, very important over here. That means technology, supercomputing, machine learning, artificial intelligence will also be used along with the spatial and research technologies. Next is dynamic, tracking the progress of the various projects. Now, please understand, if supposingly we see that a lot of project, let us say an infrastructural project is going on, we very often know that it is not one department, multiple departments are associated and concerned with those projects. Let us say a road or expressway has to be built. You'll be seeing the forest department, you'll be seeing the Ministry of Rural Development, you'll be seeing the urban ministry, Ministry of Highways, and obviously the finance ministry, and multiple ministries are involved. If you want to do or complete this project, you need to have, let us say, all those ministries on board in order to resolve it. That is why we realize that if certain project is going on, where is the project stuck? We need to analyze that, take an update. That is very, very important. Now, similarly, we see prioritization. We need to give priority towards certain projects among the list of the projects. So when we have all the data, we can track basically where the project is stuck, what are the problems there. That will basically help us to resolve the issue, because why that particular project is taking a lot of time. Optimization, selecting most optimum route. For example, if you have to connect two places, let us say A and B. Again, geospatial data along with machine learning basically helps us to find which is the most cost-effective mechanism and what transport means can be used there in order to connect those places. Next is synchronization among the various departments. So please remember, all these pillars are basically aiming at reducing the cost, better efficiency. In a way, let us say if you have a real-time update through the analytical phase also, analytical pillar, you see that if a file is stuck in one particular place, you are immediately updated with respect to the problem that is there. And what will happen? You can basically create accountability in this case, and issues are resolved at a much faster pace. So these are the pillars which form the core of your PM Gati Shakti plan or the master plan. What are the targets? I told you it is not simply a connectivity plan scheme. It is basically aims at regional development through various means. See, let's see that. 11 industrial corridors and 2 new defense corridors in Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. 4G connectivity in all villages are being aimed. Increasing renewable energy capacity from 225 gigawatts to from the 87.7 gigawatt that is here. Expanding the national highway network to 2 lakh kilometers. Creation of 220 new airports, heliports, and water aerodomes. Again, with respect to industrial corridor, aiming at regional development, connectivity, again important, increasing renewable energy, expressways, new airports, linking, all those are going on. Cargo handling capacity of railways to increase from 1,600 million tons from the present to 1,210 million tons. Adding 17,000 kilometers to the gas pipeline network. 202 fishing clusters to be added here. So you realize that it is a comprehensive aspect. Let us say, even assuming in self Sagarmala projects and the various infrastructural projects that are going on. So it is like the core infrastructure aspect of the India's plan towards achieving the goal of a developed nation by 2047. So this is a very important scheme for this year's examination, prelims as well as mains. Moving ahead, see, I've taken this topic, but in a way we have taken two editorials today, right? One is RTI and the other is with respect to the China, India and Quad. See, this is basically, this article over here as written over here basically highlights the issues that are there in the RTI. Various dimensions. Before we go on to understanding the RTI, I would like you to understand what RTI is, and I've listed certain provisions or features of the Act itself that you should be knowing. Now, when we talk about RTI, before we discuss this article, this is something that you should be knowing. The RTI Act of 2005, what is the objective? It empowers the citizens to question the government. Now, that is again fixes accountability or on the government itself that what are you doing, right? So, in order to get the information, that is basically empowering the citizens. Promotes transparency and accountability. It helps in controlling corruption and envisage building informed citizens. Again, a very important role. You're not simply here to cast your votes every 5 years. You have to be informed that the taxes you are paying, you are a part of this nation. You need to be informed what is going on. So for that, by this act, the government is being made accountable. But whatever you're doing, you have to tell the citizens who want to get some information regarding your activities. So these are the objectives. Now, what are certain provisions, certain sections that I've mentioned so that gives a brief idea. Now, these sections can be used not only in your GS paper 2 and other GS paper 3 for that matter, even in your ethics paper, where the right to information forms an important ingredient, where even case studies are asked on that. So, little bit knowledge should be there. It replaces the Freedom of Information Act 2002. Section 2H defines public authority, what a public authority is. Section 4B, the government has to maintain and proactively disclose information that is mentioned in Section 6B. Section 4B. Section 6 prescribes a simple procedure for securing information, how you have to have a specific format for getting the information. So this basically prescribes that particular format. Section 7, it prescribes a time frame for providing information by the PIO, right? Now, why it becomes important? Please understand, time frame for that matter. Let us say 30 days are given and you have asked for information. Within 30 days, the PIO has to respond and give the information. So next is Section 8 mentions the exemptions against furnishing information on the Act. Under what all organizations or what all topics in which the government will not be providing you information, which basically is referring to the defense, unity, sovereignty, integrity of India, and certain things that raise issue, the government offices can say no to the information that is being provided under these criteria. Then we have Section 19. It has two-tier mechanism of appeal. First, you file with respect to the PIO. They have to give it in 30 days. If not, then you go to the first appellate authority. In that case, if not, then the CIC, the Central Information Commission. That is the apex body. Now, Section 20 provides the penalties in the cases of failure to provide information. If the failure is, if the PIO or the authorities do not give information on time, then also penalties can be imposed. Also, if there is incorrect information, if there is incomplete information, if the information is misleading or distorted, in all these cases, basically penalties can be imposed. Now, this is what is the RTI Act of 2005. Now comes the topic that we are basically studying over here. See, in the beginning of this particular topic, the writers basically mentioned that this act is about to enter its 20th year in 2025, and it is basically said as one of the most powerful laws which empowers the citizens to the information that you can get from the government and the government functioning. Now, this is the introduction that they basically give from a positive angle, but they then come on to the aspect of all the issues that are prevailing over here. What are the information or what are the issues with respect to the RTI Act that are basically present there? First, they talk about the vacant post. A lot of posts are vacant with respect to the Information Commission. Now see, out of the 29 information commissions in the respective states, 7 out of them are defunct. That means not functioning at all. You won't believe in the Information Commission of Jharkhand has been defunctioning, has not been functioning for greater than 4 years. So how can you put the accountability on the PIO officers when the Information Commission, the state level is not functioning? Now that is what is a problem or a concerning thing. Now what happens? Second is the backlog and the pendency of cases that are mentioned. Example, the writers say in Maharashtra, greater than 1 lakh cases are pending in the Maharashtra Information Commission. Now see, these two topics are correctly linked also in a way. Large number of vacant posts are there, obviously the pendency will increase because the task that is requires the requisitive manpower is not being met. That is again a major dimension issue. Both are linked. Now what happens is that the Supreme Court, with respect to the appointments not being made and the pendency that is there, the Supreme Court has basically said that the RTI is like a dead letter. Why dead letter? What happens? Person files an RTI in order to get an information. In most of the cases, if revert is not coming, so it is like a dead letter for a person. On the other hand, if the one common practice that is being adopted is that because the information cannot be given, people try to link it under the exemption list. That means this thing cannot be released because it is exempted from being released on the ground of unity, integrity, and security of the country. Now, this is something very repeatedly, because if you do not want to release the information, you can link it with this particular topic. And that is what is being questioned, why the Supreme Court calls the response that is coming is linked to a concept of a dead letter. That means of no relevance. Now, as we move ahead over here, we'll be realizing that this dead letter concept has been explained here. Now, as we move ahead through this, we realize that political patronage is another important problem. The bureaucrats who are very close to the political bosses after the retirement often get the postings of election information commissioners. Now, the issue that arises in case of appeal being made and certain, let us say, offices, government officers do not want to release an information. So obviously they have officers placed in the information commission which had been closer to them. So that is why majority of them are retired government officials. That itself creates an issue of impartiality and neutrality being challenged. Next is with respect to non-imposition of penalties. Please remember, if this is resolved, you will be seeing that automatically the backlogs will tremendously reduce. According to this editorial, 95% of the cases where the penalties could have been imposed on the PIOs, public information officers, for either not giving the information or wrong information, incorrect information, 95% of the cases, penalties are not imposed. Why? Because supposingly it's assumed that certain information that the government particular government body doesn't want to release it. Then how come they will be putting a case of penalty against the PIO? That itself is again creating a lot of problem. If these penalties are imposed, automatically the pendency will decrease. Next is we have the 2019 amendment, which basically impacted the autonomy of the Information Commission, where basically the terms and conditions, salaries and all would be fixed by the central government. So that against has been seen as a perspective of going against the federal spirit also, and the Information Commission itself losing its autonomous nature. So that has also been raised over here in the analysis. As we move ahead, there is an act that is mentioned, that is Digital Personal Data Protection, DPDD Act 2023. Now, what is the problem in this? See, this includes an explicitly it is mentioned to amend the RTI law to exempt all personal information from being disclosure. That means no personal information can be disclosed, whether it is a public person or not. Now, that on the ground of privacy is being told. Now, this is also being seen as a means to prevent certain information which concerns the country also with respect to a private individual who is in a public position, does have a public position. That information should be released, but on this ground, certain restrictions are being imposed. Next or last, in some important concern that is being raised with respect to the killings. Hundreds of people have been killed because they have filed certain RTIs which basically tend to expose certain scams or problems in various government offices. We see these killings are a very important point of concern. Though we have the Whistleblower Protection Act, we realize that RTI and Whistleblower Protection Act should be in a way sister laws. But we realize that non-effective implementation of the Whistleblowers Act also is a major concern along with the RTI Act, because protection to the people who file those RTI, which basically raises a human concern, or let us say involves a lot of people, powerful people are involved. So certain dimensions of protection should be given to them also, which we see, if not, hundreds of killings have been there. So overall, we realize that the RTI is a very important tool to empower the citizens, but again, a diluted RTI again loses its purpose. We need to see that we need to change certain dimensions over here if we want to move ahead. Like the post that are vacant should again, those appointments need to be made, and the respective states should be make sure that those appointments are made, and along with that functioning should take place. Backlogs of pendency targets should be given that these need to be completed. See, because it is non-adherence of a timeline or the time frame is basically leading to these. If along with it penalties are imposed for non-fulfillment of the duties, automatically these pendency will decrease. Along with we realize that political patronage and the topics concerned, we realize that a cooling off period needs to be there when a bureaucrat or any important public official retires. So after few years, let us say after 3 years or 5 years, only then can a person be appointed in any commission. These have been suggestions given by the administrative reform commissions also. They should be implemented. So these are certain dimensions which can be basically dealt, and the powerful nature of RTI can be maintained. Okay, let's move ahead. This is the again uniform second editorial. This is important, but we have already covered most of the parts in the previous editorials also. Please remember that with respect to China, India, and Quad. Now, please see in the this article is basically written by Mr. M.K. Narayan, who's a former diplomat and a former national security advisor. What he says basically is in the initial part is that Prime Minister Modi had basically gone for the Quad summit in September to United States, where we saw the Wilmington Declaration taking place. In the Wilmington Declaration of the Quad outcome was basically aimed at a secure and a safe and a prosperous Indo-Pacific region. It did not directly mention China, did not mention, but Mr. M.K. Narayan over here says that they call themselves, the four nations call themselves as maritime democracies. Now, this is aiming at checkmating China. As we have in chess, checkmate the king and you win the game. So this, again, these words itself become very important when you write the international IR questions. Checkmating China. So this is what is in a way without explicitly stating. Quad has this in mind because you know that China is something, a nefarious element, which is creating a lot of issue at the geopolitical level. So Quad, in a way, wants to checkmate China. Now, please understand. We realize that over here, India and China's relationships are being studied, and the recent ones in particular. Mr. M.K. Narayan basically says in this editorial that India's and China's relationships are basically deteriorating, particularly with respect to the Galwan region. And we saw so many armed forces, Indian soldiers dying in this region. And this again, along with Demchok and Depsang plain, we have not found any breakthrough. Now, please understand, these words are being used. So let us understand. Demchok plain, Galwan, where the problem took place. Depsang plain, again, these are conflicting problems between India and China. Along with it, there's one more place I've mentioned, Daulat Beg Oldie. Basically, we realized that Super Hercules plane was landed over here as a means. There's an airstrip here for the Air Force, so that in case of any exigency or problems that are taking place, India has a strip over here where, let us say, essential supplies, soldiers, and military equipments can be basically be placed over here. So China took it as a basically a challenge against India. How come Super Hercules plane of India land over here? It's an Indian territory and we have full right to land it over here. But again, that did impact the relations between India and China, and these have been regions of conflict, particularly in the regions of the north. Along with, we know that we have conflicting relations with respect to the Arunachal Pradesh, where Arunachal Pradesh is considered by China as its own part, right? So these are the problems which raise an alarming situation. The similar conditions also prevalent. We had read in the other article where it has problems with close to 22 to 23 nations with respect to the border disputes or the maritime disputes. So that is why we realize that the relationships are not at its best. Along with it, you realize that heavy militarization along the LAC, line of actual control, like we have LOC with India, with Pakistan. Similarly, we have line of actual control with China. Now, this is along the LAC, approximately this line. So we have so there are a lot of militarization. China is spending heavily for infrastructure building along the LAC, along with militarization. So is India also forced to do it in order to protect its interests. We realize that MK Narayan has very categorically stated that China and its element of surprise is something that it is known for. So we need to be prepared for the worst. So that is why we realize that India's westward turn or shift, let us say, towards the Quad countries and the Western countries is the necessity of the time. Along with it, we realize that when we come over here, this whole paragraph is basically talking about China's ideology and its present view. See, China is of a view, and it has become very vocal about a thing, that China is not the same China of 1960s or 50s. China said that under Xi Jinping, it is different and much more powerful. So that means it was used as a provocative statement, as a means of deterrence for other countries, particularly India. But that is why you realize that India is again having closer relationships with the Western countries, though it is not explicitly mentioning China or against China, but obviously we know that underlying principle is against checkmating China. Now see, as we move ahead, one more thing that happens is China is also aware of India's position and closeness with the West. Please remember, India's closeness with the West and the Quad countries is also very concerning for China. Now, China, thus Quad with India troubles China. Please let us understand certain things. There is a problem that when we study over here, we realize that Russia had always been a close partner of India, and always helped in the time of need, whether it is during the 1970s relationships against, let us say, United States, or let us say Pakistan, or whenever we need military equipments, it has been of a lot of help. But the problem that arises is when India comes into conflict with China, Russia takes a mum or keeps quiet. The reason behind it is, earlier also, long time back also, we realized that though, because they both have a common ideological basis with respect to socialism, that links both of them. But at present, we realize that Russia is even more closer to China, because after the relationships between the Western European countries and Russia strained because of the capturing of Crimea, and after that we realized that attack against Austria. What has happened is those economics, European market as an economics has basically closed for Russia. So it shifted its tilt towards the Indian subcontinent region along with China. Now, China is a major importer of oil and gas from Russia. Now, that means it has very close relationship with China. Now, that is why when India gets in dispute with Russia, with China, Russia is the one who keeps or takes a mum. That is why it is assumed by India that in case India gets into a conflict with China, we never know. Russia might maintain a neutral stand and not come to help India. So that is why what India did is, India took a turn towards the Western powers like Quad, having closer relationship with the United States, Japan, Australia, all these members are part of Quad. Along with it, having very good relationship with France, Germany for that matter. So these things, again, what is doing is troubling China. Because all these countries are very powerful nations, and China knows it very well that in the name of military exercises, all these powers are going to come in the Indian Ocean region also, and they will be practicing. That means as a means of deterrence against China. Now that is again problematic for China. Now see, MK Narayan says that the threat posed by India to China will increase with time, and that is true because India has support of all these nations. Though India is not in a way bound by any decision of these organizations like Quad, but it is very well known that all these countries have an interest in common, that is China's expansionist policies and capturing or putting its stake on the other's land. That is something that neither United States, nor India, nor Japan, nor Australia, nor other Western countries want, for that matter, nor any of the countries or the other countries of the South China Sea or Eastern China Sea wants it. So over here, now in the conclusion part also, please remember, a common thing comes. That is multi-alignment. M.K. Narayan says, please note that we are very well aware that India has to have close relationships with the Western world. Fine. But it doesn't mean that India is going to be bound by any decision that is taken by them, because India believes in the principle of multi-alignment, that we are going to align with large number of groups, but decision will be taken by us on the basis of what suits us and what is important for our interest, not in the favor or interest of a group, but our interest. Now we know that one very important thing is that India has very close trade relationships and dependence on China. For that matter, let us assume the critical minerals. Now, among the critical minerals, we know that there is a subcategory of rare earth metals or minerals. India is badly dependent on that, because India, if it is wants to lead a electric revolution with respect to the technologies and cars, you are dependent on China. You cannot simply make it as an enemy all the time. You have to continue with certain relationships. Along with it, create a deterrence-like situation, like being in the groups of Quad and all. That is what multi-alignment is. You cannot be simply bound by the decisions of the West. Along with it, you cannot simply go on a simple war face-to-face with China also, because that is harmful for everybody. That is what is being talked and told by Mr. M.K. Narayan in this particular editorial. Let's move ahead. We see news and shots. Again, this is with respect to the THAAD missile defense system. Now, please understand, US is deploying this in Israel along with its troops. Now, please understand what it is. It is basically a defense system which has these launchers. Along with it, we realize that we have radars here, ground tactical support system, and all these things are there. If an enemy launches a missile, it tracks it and tries to blast it in the air itself. This is again a preventive measure for any attack that basically is launched against Israel, because we've seen that rise of attacks basically rising from the side of Hamas. And along with it, we realize that Iran is also now actively involved in this war. So this required immediate intervention from the side of the United States also to protect Israel. Now see, THAAD basically means the Terminal High Latitude Area Defense. It is what it is. It is simply an abbreviation of THAAD. It is a missile defense system that is designed to intercept and destroy short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles in the final flight phase. It was earlier proposed by United States in 1987, but basically adopted by the United States in 2008 against any form of attack by the enemy. Please remember, it is not a form of attacking anybody, it is a form of defense. That is why it is written that THAAD cannot be used as a form of attack. It is a form of defense. If some missile comes, then the interception takes place and you destroy the missile. So it is a form of defense. That is why you realize that the word defense is being used here. Its role used by a powerful radar. Obviously, these powerful radar, what is marked in red is what are the important keywords. It is a powerful radar that basically sees that, catches it, tracks, and then destroys the missile. That is what basically THAAD is all about. As we move ahead, please see. Next is Kavach. Now, please understand, with a recent accident between the trains taking place in Tamil Nadu, the Kavach system and study of Kavach becomes important. Now, see, what is Kavach? Kavach is a signaling system of the train that controls system against having the anti-collision features. Now see, we realize that when we talk about trains, we realize in our trains, obviously the loco pilot or the train driver is there. He might miss a certain signal. Let us say a train is moving and it is basically an anti-collision device in a way, you can say. If a train is moving, you realize that a red signal is there and supposingly the driver is not in his, let us say, sleepy, and he misses that signal. There's a possibility that the trains will collide. So what happens is that the moment a signal is red and a train is going, first thing that the Kavach does is that it intimates the driver or the loco pilot through a light and a sound. First thing is that, so that even if the driver or the loco pilot is feeling sleepy, he gets notified. Second thing is, in case that doesn't work, then emergency brakes are applied on its own. Now that is why we realize that this system again has to be adopted by all the trains first. Second, further enhancement in the technology is required because we saw certain activities took place or certain accidents have still been taking place. So upgradation of Kavach to technologically software means needs to be done. Along with it, a comprehensive upgradation of the signals also is a need of the hour. That is why we see it is a cap signaling train control system with anti-collision features developed by Research Design and Standard Organization. Along with few vendors, it is adopted as a national automatic train protection system. It adheres to the safety integrity level 4 standards and act as a vigilant watchdog against the signaling system, alerting the loco pilot when approaching a red signal and applying automatic brakes if necessary. Okay, now MCQs. Okay. Pause the screen, attempt the question. Just a minute. Pause the screen, attempt the question. 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 And these are your answers. So let us move to the first page. Hopefully you like the analysis of the Hindu from 14th of October 2024. Take care, and we'll be back again with tomorrow's analysis in the morning. Take care and Jai Hind.